This is the Spring Nationals. I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and this is one of the most popular cars in all of drag racing, a funny car. A 2,000 horsepower engine, the driver of utmost importance. In round number 2 racing, we'll be seeing Tom Hoover, driver of the Showtime Corvette. He'll be facing Rick Johnson, wheeling the car owned by Fred Castronova. Ed the Ace McCulloch of Sanger, California. Dale Pulde will be his competitor at the wheel of the War Eagle. The reigning world champion Raymond Beadle in the famed Blue Max against John Collins. Billy Meyer here with his lovely wife Deborah against the 4-time world champion Don the Snake Prudhomme. In round number 2 competition, it is Tom Hoover, the Corvette-bodied creation, against Rick Johnson. All eyes on the starting line. A great lead by both cars. Johnson drifting close to the center line. And a close race as Tom Hoover wins it. His elapsed time, 6.22 seconds. The losing time, 6.25 seconds. Only 0.03 of a second difference between the two cars. And the difference may be that Rick Johnson, drifting very close to the center line, may have had to lift. And here's Rick Johnson. He's not happy with himself. He's packing up his helmet, taking his fire suit off, and decides, why sit out here in the wind? Let's go back inside. Our next pair of cars, Ed McCulloch in the lane nearest the camera, the War Eagle of Dale Pulde, the far lane. McCulloch dropped out of drag racing for a couple of years, back in it again at the start of this season, and has got his hands full, not only with a 2,000 horsepower car, but the strong headwinds that are blowing on this track can affect these full-bodied cars a bit more than they can the slender and narrow top-fuel dragsters that we've seen thus far. The War Eagle of Dale Pulde into the winner's circle at the Winter Nationals. McCulloch has yet to win a national title in his comeback. His crew chief, Bernie Lewis, checking everything over, saying it's ready to go. Pulde patiently waiting as both cars getting set for the all-important start down the quarter mile. And Pulde up in smoke, almost hits the guardrail. McCulloch holds the car through for the quarter of a mile at 6.26 seconds at 226 miles an hour. As we watch again, you see the smoke coming off the tires, indicating losing traction for Pulde. McCulloch also losing traction just a bit, but he comes back and recovers and takes the win over the War Eagle.
Until Don Prudhomme came along, there was no bigger name in AA fuel funny car racing than Ed the Ace McCulloch from Fresno, California. McCulloch now going into the semifinals. Ace, were you concerned about that lane that had just been oiled down?
Well, actually, I was when I first saw it get oiled, and then Gary went up there and took the opposite lane, and I questioned that, and they do a really good job cleaning it up. They run the track dryer over, so I figured it'd be okay, so we took it.
How's it feel to be back in a serious threat now?
Well, you know, what can I say? The car runs well. We'd like to be running a little bit better here, but we're not hurting it bad. We had a little problem qualifying, but got it straightened out, and I think we'll be okay.
Looks like it. Thank you, Ace.
Thanks, Steve.
As Ed heads back to the car on the starting line, it is the defending world champion, Ray Beadle in the Blue Max from Dallas, Texas. Stopping the string at 4 for Don Prudhomme. Last season, Ray Beadle won the very coveted world champion title. He's against John Collins in one of the Datsun 280Z bodied cars. John had the misfortune of crashing his car in March of this year, and this is his first major event since a total rebuild. Ray Beadle, the world champion, in the near lane. John Collins in the right lane. And a wheel stand start by Beetle. He's all over the race course, but he gets it straightened out, and he's on fire. An engine explosion, the fire coming out underneath the car, the parachute whipping through the breeze. Beetle trying to bring the car to a stop. Steve, you're down there. What's going on?
This time.
Dave, Raymond Beetle sliding to a stop down here. The emergency crews rushing from both ends of the racetrack. He actually stopped in rather an awkward part of the racetrack and not normally where the fire equipment is needed, but they're on him now.
Ray Beadle encased in his fire suit, A-OK. As we watch it again, you see him leave the starting line. The wheels are in the air. It begins to drift out towards the guardrail. Raymond drops the front wheels back on the pavement. Meanwhile, John Collins trying his best to pull ahead of the world champion. As Raymond making the charge for the finish line, the engine explodes. Some piston smoke out of John Collins' car, but the fire is the important thing in the Blue Max. You see the parachute, part of the shroud lines burned away, and there is where Ray Beadle hits the onboard fire extinguishers and knocks the fire down. John Collins with his arm around Ray Beadle, both drivers A-OK. The Blue Max itself singed just a little bit. Here again, Steve.
Dave, Raymond Beadle says it was a little hot under his seat. You okay?
Yeah, it's okay. The car just wheel stood real good. I had to let it down, and yeah, it's okay. Just got a little hot, no problem.
The onboard fire extinguishers really help.
Yeah, well, the car, I wasn't going to use them at first, and they got too hot, and I just had to.
I'll bet it got hot.
Yeah, a little hot, a little hot.
And you know, waiting down here for you is some of the finest emergency crews anywhere.
Yeah, no problem. They were right on the deal. I just want them to get the body up in case it was on fire, but it's okay.
Okay, what now? Change engines?
Yeah, we'll change motors. No problem.
Okay, Raymond Beadle is all right, but what a spectacular fire under the Blue Max.
Steve, the emergency crew having their work cut out for him today, is back on the starting line. The man that has won 4 consecutive world champion titles in funny car racing, Don Prudhomme, sits patiently as his crew chief Bob Brandt starts the some 2,000 horsepower engine. The body will be lowered down over Prudhomme and latched into place firmly. But now it goes back up again momentarily. And Bob Brandt walks in, checks everything over, the engine just sort of idling away. They can run for a number of minutes. They carry water inside the blocks and cylinder heads. And on nitromethane fuel, just idling, they can idle for quite some time before they get too hot. As he pulls into the water and does his burnout, a very popular event with the drag racing fans. Don Prudhomme is matched against Billy Meyer from Waco, Texas. Here in slow motion, we see the burnout, and the rear of the car seems to rise in the air, and that is because the tires, as they are spinning, grow in size some 6 inches or more due to the centrifugal force. The purpose of the burnout, of course, is to heat the tires up. Prudhomme doing another dry burnout, as does Billy Meyer. Meyer backs into position, and the starter giving the cutoff sign to Don Prudhomme. The crew for Billy Meyer applauding. Competition director Steve Gibbs shaking his head to the snake, saying, no, you cannot run it. Something apparently coming out of the motor, either oil or water, that would have made it hazardous for Prudhomme to complete the run, so it's a single for Billy Meyer. Billy, out of shape right off the starting line, gets near the center line and backs away. If he had had a good run going, you may have seen him trying for a good low elapsed time, as the low ET from the previous round getting the choice of lanes in the next round of racing. But for Prudhomme, his racing day is done, and this is a very rare occurrence. You very seldom see Don Prudhomme shut off at the starting line for leakage of any type. For Billy Meyer, a nice victory as he now goes into the semifinals, taking off his fire suit and racing equipment, handing it to his wife, Deborah. Drag racing, often a husband and wife combination.